And now, the World Situation Report with Kimberly Gogan from the Office of the Guardian. The real reason behind the rising costs of food around the world is revealed. The truth may surprise you. A transition occurred over the weekend as we passed through the Aeon Flux. What is the flux? Did you know it happens twice a year? The complete global takeover of all remaining operating systems of the deep state reveals more truths than we even expected. The satanic New World Order had more control over your life than you could possibly imagine. Now here's Kimberly Gogan with the Office of the Guardian. Hi, Kim. Happy Monday.
It is Happy Monday, and for those of you that are celebrating Orthodox Easter, Happy Easter. It was on Sunday. So lots of interesting things going on around the world. I'm going to touch on some regular news, I guess you would say, before we get into the world of crazy that we live in.
Okay.
You know, some of these things I've kind of avoided saying, but I think that it's important to understand as we go forward. So let's start with some regular stuff. Okay, since Thursday, Iraq has been flooding, very similar to what happened in Saudi Arabia. So we're seeing although I understand it's caused some disruptions, those rains are natural. And they are a move towards turning the deserts green. So you can look up some information about that online. Next thing, in the world of Bible thumpers, it appears that there are more people joining the Bible thumping party in order to get what they believe is their pay.
Okay.
So recently, Ukraine has declared its government God's chosen ones. And that is in the mainstream news on Orthodox Easter. Over the weekend.
I saw something that Vladimir put out. I don't think I clicked on it to actually watch it, but it seemed very biblical.
Yes.
And I was like, I can't even look at that.
Yeah, they've gone from worshiping Satan to now deciding that they're all going to be God's chosen people.
Well, it kind of makes sense. Like if on any level they realize that we are now in a golden age or golden period, whatever we're calling it now, forevermore, and they realize they were on the losing side, it kind of makes sense that they would just try to jump. Do you know what I mean? Be like, oh, so let's, now it's real source, not anti-source. Let's just, come off as the...
Let's just be that. Let's just do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, yes and no. Yes and no.
That's where we're going.
Well, yeah. They seem to think that I guess you could fool God or you can fool source, I guess, into thinking that you're not doing what you're doing. Now, it's one thing to have done things in your life. Some people, we've made mistakes. We're just humans. We make mistakes in our lives and maybe not to the greatest extent that the deep state has. But I will say that it's one thing to have done something and then ask God for forgiveness or a source for forgiveness for what you've done. And, you didn't do it intentionally or you didn't know or you were in a tough situation, whatever that is. And, and then you don't do it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that willful ignorance is a crime. Now that you don't repeat this process. Mm-hmm. But these people are actually trying to kill people at the same time they are saying that they want to do something good. They want to be God's chosen ones by going against everything that is happening here on this planet. So we'll talk a little bit more as we get into some kind of scary news a little bit, but, positives in some ways. Okay, next, Pfizer has kind of gotten away from producing COVID vaccines, they say, and they are now moving on to the next profitable venture, which is cancer drugs. So they've made an announcement, for investment purposes that they are now moving on to something probably in their mind a little bit more stable. Pandemics come and go, things, it's kind of outlived itself in their mind. So they're focusing now on the sale of cancer drugs, probably to pull themselves out of bankruptcy, which is not going to help them any, based on some events that happened over the weekend, I think. This is my opinion. Okay, so let's talk about the events over the weekend, I think, that made Pfizer change its mind.
Okay.
So there was some talk a few years back, or a couple of years ago, about them vaccinating you one way or another. This is as an example. And in the course of getting rid of these operating systems that we're going a lot deeper into things than I would have ever expected. I mean, I knew financial operating systems, military, those types of things. That's kind of a well-known thing, But there was one really surprising one that they no longer have, so not to worry. But it was tied directly to the placement of biochips in food. Very similar to the biochips that were put into vaccines. So if you think because you didn't get the vaccine, however you've consumed food from your local market, then you probably have just as many biochips as they do. And the operation of those, or the ability to manipulate those biochips in your person for maleficent purposes, has ended. However, Pfizer and a number of other companies, large pharmaceutical companies whose names you know, such as Moderna, acquired this technology, not of human origin originally, and then of human origin eventually, coming from Northrop Grumman, to put it in all your food. Everything that goes through manufacturing, canned goods, everything. It is in everything. It's in vegetables. It withstands heat. So even cooking of your food doesn't get rid of the biochips in your food. And where, how sometimes we see, especially like as school years kind of start and you see like a lot of the flu, or you see stomach bugs, or you see, and then we kind of hear about it like, oh, it's going all throughout, say, this state or this province, and nothing to be worried about. It eventually goes away. Well, they use these biochips to create these things in humans. Now, the reason why we have seen the correlation between the COVID-19 pandemic and the rising cost of food is because somebody has to pay to put this stuff in your food. Oh. And that somebody is you.
So that's inflation.
That is your inflation on food. The rising cost in food is due to the introduction of pharmaceutical manufacturers into the profitability in the food market. That's why costs have nearly doubled, because you're actually paying for your vaccines one way or another, whether you went into a clinic and got a jab, or you are getting it through your food, and now we are paying for it. So is this going to continue? Well, without the operating system for the biochips that are in food, are they going to continue to keep the price of food high to pay the drug companies? Does it serve them to do that? That's the only question I have. So, and looking, when you take over an operating system, meaning we're turning it from their system and their base platform to our base platform, meaning alpha harmonic genesis, they no longer have the accessibility to manipulate things using it, or to create another platform like it, because their base platform has gone away.
Right.
the more platforms that go away, the angrier they get. And today we have hit a very high peak.
Kim, can I ask a question before we move on about, if we have consumed these biochips, is there anything that we need to know? I mean, obviously it's not connected to anything, but I feel a little weird thinking that I ate some biochips, quite frankly.
Well, me too.
Yeah. Is there anything that we should be doing, like regular detoxification, the stuff that we always talk about? Will it eventually come out? Is it something that's stuck in our body?
No, it'll eventually come out. Heavy metal detoxes probably wouldn't hurt. Yeah. Like I'm a big fan of the Folium Immuno product that Dr. Babry, he is a doctor now, Dr. Babry puts out simply because it reduces all effects of radiation, because, these things don't, they run on radiation. They run on your Wi-Fi. You feel kind of upset when you grab your phone sometimes, or whether it's an emotional thing or a physical thing, to rid the body of them faster and to reduce any effects. Also other things you can do, pine parts are great for that. So pine part tea, I know they make it in capsules, is great for reducing the damage that may have been done by the biochips when they were in effect. There are many different heavy metal detoxes out there on the market. I'm kind of a big fan of just, making the smoothie once a week. It's blueberries, cilantro, orange, fresh squeezed orange. This is a medical medium thing, so if you're a fan of the medical medium, you know the one I'm talking about, and that works pretty well, I think. There's also cilantro essential oils you can take. Chlorophyll is another great one for ridding heavy metals from the body, and that's pretty much what you need to do at this point.
Is there any way for us to be able to detect what food this is in, or it was just in all food? There was no escaping this if you were shopping at a grocery store.
If you weren't getting it from the air and you weren't getting it from your food, then you're getting it from the water supply. It doesn't matter what you do as a human being, you are not going to avoid this.
Well, that's what they said.
Yep, that's what they said, and that's exactly what they have done.
Yeah.
So, it's that we're going to talk about more of those things too. Might as well do that now, I guess. Global operating systems. Mm-hmm. So we are familiar and have become increasingly familiar with things like the Internet of Body Things. This has to do with other types of vaccines as well, not just these types. And this was before the last few years when they started getting it into you one way or another. Internet of Body Things has to do with an internet for disease. There was a lot of operating systems that were focused on you. As an example, there was an operating system individually for your soul body, is what it was called, operating management system. And you had one for your emotional body operating system, and you had one for your mental body operating system. Yeah, astral body, you name it, go through all the planes of existence as we've learned them. And you had an operating system that could interfere with all of them. Next, another little interesting fact that I found when I went into the maritime systems. Now, as you know, there's a lot of talk about orange boxes and black boxes on planes. Ships and boats all have something similar.
Yeah.
They are meant to, the same thing for your car, same thing for trains. In commercial shipping and military ships, and helicopters and, drones. And you name anything that moves. Let's call it all transportation systems of not only civilians, but also militaries. all have some sort of a system within it in case of a terrorist attack where they can control the plane remotely. It's for your safety and security, they will tell you. But in fact, it's not.
Yeah.
So the ship in Maryland, not that long ago, it was a few weeks ago, that crashed into the bridge.
Oh, yeah, where the bridge completely came down. Yeah.
They did that completely remotely. It was in the logs of the operating system. 100% certainty, a group of American SSP people were the ones that were testing the operating system and crashed the ship.
Intentionally crashed the ship, I'm assuming, right? Or they just didn't know what they were doing? Okay.
Yes, they did intentionally crash the ship. Same thing goes for other planes that have hit the news over the last several years that have just downed, have mechanical failures, all those types of things. That is all created remotely by a group of people with an operating system. Mm-hmm. So they can turn your vehicle against you. Deploy your airbags going hundreds of miles an hour, or not that you go to drive that fast, but, unless you're kind of an adrenaline junkie. But, you could be going 60, 70, 80 miles an hour down the freeway and your airbags could deploy if they want to do that. They can turn off your automated braking systems. They can turn anything off in your car that is run by a CPU or a central processing unit, of which all vehicles after, say, 1996 to 1998 had. Mm-hmm. Yep. So now you've got your food. Now you've got Wi-Fi. Most people have some kind of a Wi-Fi system within their house. Same thing goes for your television set-based operating systems. Those frequencies that they send through your music and your phones and your apps, all that came from an operating system, an individualized cellular device management operating system unto itself. Think about every single thing that is in your life was controlled, with no exceptions.
When you say controlled, is there a way to know how controlled? What would they do? Would they try to do something in a certain area of the world, a state, or a territory? What would they do?
Lots of things. I mean, it just depends on, what they want to do, what their end objective is. It could be all humans. It could be an experience where there's supposed to be a connection to source. And so they start remote controlling your emotional body, your mental body, they can make people crazy. They can give them mental health issues. Conversely, they can try to manipulate your mind. And so everybody's all concerned about MK Ultra programs and all this. You're all MK Ultra, Yeah. You all are in some way, shape, or form. It's just whether it's relevant for them to do so or not. The food that they feed our military is no different. Why do you think our military does the things that they do? Not normal for people. PTSD created by the same thing. They can make you look crazy so that nobody will believe you if you happen to become a conspiracy theorist, quote unquote. Yeah. Think about an aspect of your life, any part. Your clothing. What's in your clothing? What are those? What is the smell of those chemicals in your clothing anyway? And how does that affect your body? Can it cause radiation poisoning? Yes, it can. Can it do? Yes, yes, it could. In the past, that smartwatch you're wearing, there's another one. Bluetooth anything is another one. Routers worldwide, fiber optic cables. I'm trying to think of everything that we have gone through, hundreds of thousands of them, and it started because of what the crazy Q people were saying on their little clock website, because they were saying there was going to be a global shutdown. I'm like, well, how are they going to do a global shutdown? Mm-hmm. And if I was Dr. Evil, where would I look? What would I do? Okay, so electrical grids is another one, remote. Globally, worldwide, it doesn't matter who installed it. You're all running on the same operating system. Oil and gas pipelines, same thing. We've seen leaks everywhere, in the past. Why does that happen? To increase the price of fuel. Same thing with the Transneft pipeline that ran through Ukraine from Russia. There's same thing with the pipeline over there to China from Russia. That they're not paying them anyway, so I'm sure, there's probably some kind of threat between the two of those countries too. But if you want to increase the price of oil and gas, you shut off the pipeline, cause it to, say it's a leak, and then all of a sudden, the price of fuel at the pump goes up a couple of dollars. You could create all kinds of inflation type events. Agriculture is another one. Agricultural supplies, agricultural fertilizers, agricultural, pest sprays. All of that has something or other in it. Same thing with the magnetic ink and the dollar bills that are in your pocket, or euro or peso or wherever you are. It's the same. Everything had an operating system. Did I miss anything, Sunny? How about brushing your teeth?
Wow. So
there is no product on the market that did not have an operating system.
Okay. So just to clarify, though, has that been taken care of? Because there might be a lot of people freaking out right now as they're watching this.
Yeah, I kind of freaked out, myself as I went through hundreds of them over the weekend. I mean, hundreds, if not thousands of these different types of operating systems that were utilized by what we call global headquarters and members of the SSP and these types of things. So as far as I know, most of the operating systems we're finding now were things that were installed by non-humans.
Okay.
For other control. Now, how many of these systems did the humans have access to? And what type of access? And was there always an override? So on their side of it, Marduk would have had an override, as an example. Another program, if you remember, Y2K.
Yeah.
Remember Y2K? Well, there was Y2K1, Y2K2, Y2K3, where they could actually shut down all electronics worldwide. It was like some kind of a worldwide switch. Causing mass panic and chaos. So that was actually overridden by Marduk. He actually decided that was not a good idea and overrode it.
With the Y2K as we know it, that's what happened. Like there was all that hype and then nothing happened. So Marduk called that off?
Yep.
Thanks, Marduk, I guess. I don't know what.
Yeah,
what
no
did he
kidding.
do
if you ever
instead?
thanked him for anything before, I'm sure there was another dastardly reason for that.
Which one? How do I want to harm humanity today?
Yeah, exactly. We'll just let him install some biochips instead.
Exactly.
That's better,
Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as I know at this moment in time, the only thing I'm seeing are things that the humans walking the earth, even of the deep state, wouldn't have had access to.
Okay.
But they definitely wanted it back, for sure.
I'm sure.
So as far as a change, now, there was a lot of talk about a global shutdown, a big shift. Now the Q people are talking about Marduk and Enki and Enlil coming back, and they're back, and nobody's back. It's all a lie. It's all a flat-out lie. There are no aliens that have come to help them in any way. But I know I've talked before about the Aeon Flux.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember me talking about the Aeon Flux?
I don't remember that. Mm-mm.
Okay. All right. So twice a year, there is a transition that occurs on planet Earth, and as a nexus planet, exclusively on Earth. And this period of time is called, well, I don't think we're going to have it anymore after this time, but it was called the aeon flux, or the eternal flux. And it's a period of time, and it usually lasts no longer than 48 hours, where Earth, source, neutral source, and anti-source align perfectly. And there's always a communication that happens between all that is, but it's typically a source decision-making time is what would happen every year. And depending on where we were in the ages and who was in control of Earth and those types of things would determine what was going to happen, like fate.
Okay.
And if there was going to be any changes made. The flux would have been a neutral zone. So it's not dark, it's not light. And that transition for us this year began on Saturday and continued on through probably early this morning, my time. And the flux is a time of no age and a time of no dominant crystalline or anti-crystalline time. It is completely a neutral period and a pass-through of neutrality. Now, we've talked about the creator, source, as we know, and anti-source. And we've also talked about neutral source, which was kind of like the management company. Mm-hmm. You know, depending on what age, you could call it source and anti-source combination. But it was also kind of like a regulator for ages, time, to make sure that no beings on the other one side or the other violated any kind of covenant with source. It was kind of that neutral space in between. Mm-hmm. Now, the flux is ruled solely by the management or the regulator, period. But this time, since we are now in the golden age, and even though we went through a flux this weekend, from our end of it, a flux is a perfect time to end certain things while you're in the no age, no space, no thing, and while there's that alignment that happens. Okay. So there were some things that did end this weekend, and some interesting little tidbits were some covenants that were between Aries. You remember Aries from a year or two ago. I mentioned the god of war, as you know it, was a female, and the opposite of me. And Aries, that covenant finally expired, which was good for us, and an override program for Omega. There was also some additional changes that happened as far as the Omegaverse was concerned, and the conversion of the beginnings of the conversion of that to an extension of the Alphaverse also started this weekend. And this part is interesting because even though we had the GOLD declaration and we've had a lot of changes that have taken place, I guess a flux period, we have gotten to such a point with the removal of dark and dark energy, dark forces, dark matter, to where it appeared that source was taking over anti-source. Mm-hmm. During this flux. Normally, it was a time of a decision, is what it looked like to me, of which one was going to exist for all eternity as we move into a golden age. And somehow this was something that the deep state had very little understanding of as well. Mm-hmm. I'm still trying to sort it out. So I'm just giving you the information as I understood it based on the events that happened over the weekend. From their side, they were thinking that Omega was going to take over Alpha and they were going to be back in charge. And I had been hearing that since Friday night from them. And I'm like, why are we, what is going on? And then, of course, always at the last second, I knew about the Aeon flux. I just didn't realize we were going to do a pass through of the flux. It's almost like Dial of Destiny source style or something. It's interesting. But for them, they felt that was their opportunity, and perhaps that's the Bible humping. Mm-hmm. Maybe they wanted the contract with Source, or they figured they'd hedge their bets. They will bet now on Light Source and Dark Source, and whichever one comes out, they'll have their position as the chosen one as long as they declare themselves the chosen ones, I guess. Not really sure. So needless to say, I believe that by this morning they have figured out they're not the chosen ones, and that they did not get back either side or control of either side. And moreover than anything, any remaining operating systems that they had even limited access to are going away. So their ability to control these things that I'm telling you about, and the reason why I'm telling you about them now is because these things are not a threat anymore.
Right.
Could they create another Internet of Body Things or Internet of Things where they control your smart meters? There's another one. Internet of Things controlled a lot. Your water meter, sewage systems. I mean, you name it, it's there. And without the full knowledge of an operating system that no longer operates on a dark way, they would never, our system operates on a light system. It's basically the codec, as you know, is used on computers mainly for video, for producing video and that kind of thing, because it's just a version of displaying light. When you see a video, normal light. But our system is a lot more sophisticated than that type of thing. So, they're not going to be able to recreate a program like this, number one. Number two, they don't have access to the base platform at all to do that anyway. And number three, they actually never did. They never, these things were granted by a submission to the Hall of Records, which would eventually have gone to Marduk or Ares or whoever was in control of the dark records in Omega, and then would grant them the access to the base platform for which to build their, Internet of Body Things or the food internet, and those types of things. So, this is a big win for us. It's a necessary step in making the changes that we need to make. Not only that, in some cases, and not all of this, in sorting through it, I'm like, well, I'm wondering if we could use this for something positive. Mm-hmm. If it's hooked up to a light platform, can I use those things to heal? I don't know yet. There would probably be some reverse engineering or something, and I'm not willing to take a risk until I've fully explored the use of them, and if they're just need to be terminated, and that's the end of that.
Right.
But the one thing is for sure is it's making them very angry. They are angry this morning because they have figured out that their systems or whatever they were expecting as God's chosen people didn't come back. Mm-hmm. They are yelling and screaming. There is no money that came out, that kind of thing. No control. And actually, as a matter of fact, they lost control further. Things are dissipating very nicely over there on that side. And the only thing that was left was anything that was dual. So we might still have remnants in alpha of some of these programs, but they were of dual control, mm-hmm. which then allowed them to use their old Black Sun access codes for risk management services that they provided to the deep state. So that's why they had to go. So those are being removed and replaced with our base platform and no longer a dual alpha omega system. So they're out. This will also help us in the long run control financial systems further. There was a few more things there. Also, all base Unix platforms, Linux, all of those, which is a positive thing for us. Transportation, those types of things. I don't know. I might keep some of those. There's some in there for example, semi-trucks. There's also C-130s and military type transport planes, those kind of things. And, they could prove useful. The control systems could prove useful for preventing, for example, terrorists from obtaining weapons. They could prove useful if you don't want troops on the ground somewhere and stop the plane from taking off. So these are things that, I could see some positive benefits for humanity for stuff like that. Stealing, is another one. They transport all kinds of substances we probably don't want in our children's bodies that, they might find places. You could severely disrupt, actually, the proliferation of certain things from like Pfizer, Moderna. I mean, think about it. Transportation. If it's not on the shelves, maybe how many times does that take? So these are options that I'm thinking about. Like, do we need to keep it? Do we not? We'll see. But it actually helps us if we're going to take down global corporations in the future when we have a replacement for it. So there are some things that are critical to human survival at this moment because things like insulin and stuff, we've talked about that. Yeah. And obviously food is necessary. Until we can replace it with something different, we can't do too much disruption. And I know people are probably like, oh, we want it out of the grocery stores. I'm going to crawl under a rock now. Well, it's an evil plan proliferated by evil people that want to do evil things. Is there still a rumor out there that I'm a bad person for not letting them do what they wanted to do? Yes, there is. I've heard a little bit from some people, some operatives and stuff. They are being told, by their people that I am doing something very bad for this country. Now, I'm not doing something bad for this country, meaning the United States, or anywhere else for that matter. I simply think that I disagree with the fact that you're going to put stuff in my food that you can control remotely to cause disease in my person.
Yeah.
I disagree that you should be able to do that. Mm-hmm. I disagree with that. I also disagree that you are putting things into my body that I don't consent to. Mm-hmm. I disagree with you. There was a chemtrail control system, meaning, the stuff that gets sprayed on you, you're worried about heavy metals and poisons and whatever else is out there on the internet. That's not the purpose. That was never the purpose behind them. The purpose was always to get this stuff into you one way or another so they can control you properly in their mind.
Yeah.
Now, so if me destroying their ability to crash ships into bridges and there was actually a demolition for bridges and infrastructure in general, whether you know it, there's also, you ever wonder how you're driving down the freeway and it kind of goes beep, 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 like when you cross over the line? How does it know you're crossing over the line? Some models of cars, when you're driving down the freeway and there's multiple lanes, they'll actually beep at you when you are crossing over the white line or a yellow line on the road.
I must
That is
not
due
have one
to
of those
magnetic
fancy
heat,
cars.
friends, which is also controlled.
Wow,
Yep.
that's crazy.
They can detect how much cash is in your pocket if you're traveling on an airplane, traveling on a freeway. All that is managed by these same systems. Your weather control systems that everybody's so worried about is also had a system, an operating system unto itself. Atmospheric controls and manipulation of meteor systems, crashing meteors into Earth, all of that. Now, they wouldn't have had access to that as far as the humans go. But as far as the others go, yes, they did. We actually call it today, the last time that it happened on a grand scale, we call it the Mediterranean Sea.
Wow.
Yep. We have been under some serious attacks here for quite a long time. But it's getting better. It's getting better. And you should reach around and give yourself a big pat on the back because you survived more than you'll ever know. And you're still here. And you're still reaching out to the Creator. And you never gave up faith and you never gave up hope for a better humanity. Because I can tell you they tried every way possible not to let you do that.
Right.
And it's so much worse than you ever could read on an internet blog, conspiracy site, or otherwise. It was so much worse. You think you're going to sail away in a boat and you're free and you feel freedom traveling around the world in a sailboat or something like that. You're wrong because you have electronics in there and they could shut that thing down, sunk it, whatever you can possibly imagine at any given moment in time. You were not free in any way and you were not on your own in any way. You were not exercising your sovereign rights in any way. You were, by being under maritime law, meaning more than a mile offshore, that kind of thing. That is a complete and total lie. As far as these wars and things they talk about with tanks and people fighting, all of that's remote controlled. All of it, every single bit of it. Helicopters. There was a story in the news about a military helicopter going down a few weeks ago. I'm sure that was done on purpose. Whoever was in there, they didn't want to land properly. They kill their own people. They are brutal in every way, and all to appeal to apparently themselves self-declared God's chosen people. If that's the God that allegedly is driving them to do all of this crazy stuff, then that's not one I want in my life. So, yeah. Any questions, Miss Sunny? I know. Scary.
It's kind of a lot to take in. Yeah, it is scary. I just think about all the times, that I flew, got in my car or whatever. You start to reflect a little. And it's not to spread fear. That's not what we're trying to do, guys. And, don't be scared to get in your car and things like that. But I'm just glad, some people are born awake and aware, and I'm really glad I wasn't one of those people.
No.
I'm just being honest, because ignorance can be bliss, until we were ready to, really do something about it and be able to have the power to do that. I'm glad that's when I realized what was going on. There was always some element of it in my life,
from a young age. But for the most part, as far as this crazy stuff goes, I'm glad I didn't know. I'm actually glad I didn't know until recently, on some of these things. I'm going to have to try to figure out a way. That's what I was thinking. The first thing I said, I was like, geez, I need to go get a greenhouse. I need to figure out a way to grow food in the winter. I don't want to eat your food anymore. I can't let your rain fall on my food. I don't want to
walk around in a bubble with no electron, like a Faraday bubble.
I know. Even being out in the woods doesn't help you any. It was bad.
Yeah,
You know,
it was.
I guess, when they talk about control, they definitely did a bang up job. And by they, I'm not even talking about the humans. Like, the humans had limited access to this stuff. I'm more talking about the others that were here.
Yeah.
But I guess you've got, millions of years on us on how to create control systems. Well, we've only had a few years on how to uncreate control systems.
Right. Yeah.
But I can definitely see some of these things being useful in taking out the remaining things that the cabal controls, or the deep state, whatever you want to call them, the orders, plural. So that's something I'm probably days away from even looking at this moment, because I need to make sure first that I have them all, and how many of them were running autonomously with standing orders. As an example, you can set your computer to reset every night at midnight if you want to. Well, they could set something to reset, at any given moment in time. Standing orders can be a real problem. So I want to make sure that all those things are done, and then I'll start looking at all my new toys and see if I can do something positive with them, or at the very least, I can disrupt, their corporations. I can disrupt their, patents that they stole from people, which everything they have, they stole. So, can I use it for something positive to help with the way that CARE is doing things? I think so. And to those out there that think I'm doing something wrong, well, I think you need to look in the mirror at yourself. Really. And honestly, if what I see you people doing and you think I'm wrong, then I think I should be elated and flattered even.
Yeah.
So,
did you have anyone reach out, Kim? I think it was on Friday. We talked about the New Deal that you put forward. Did you have anyone reach out to you?
Well, I think they were all busy trying to see if the flux was going to go in their direction. But no, not yet. But right now, there's fights. Literally physical fights going on in the Treasury Department. Some interesting news. The Federal Reserve in New York has moved. The security looks like it's out there and all that. Looks like stuff is still going on in that building, but they actually moved over to the Treasury Department on the 1st of May.
What do you think the point of that was?
In my opinion, it's because the people that run the Treasury Department are wanting to control all of the wares of the Federal Reserve, which is none, actually, other than the humans, and take over utilizing treasuries worldwide. Now, the people that I'm referring to that control the treasuries departments are the Order of the Black Sun, the SSP. Remember, the SSP last week was positioning themselves to be in control of, their masters and everyone and everything. But yeah, those are the people that wanted that to occur. Now, eventually, they're going to move all the Fed offices into treasury departments. So there are 12 locations, technically 13, but 12 that you know about. And they were all supposed to move into treasury buildings and combine the two. So that the treasuries can now control currencies worldwide. And that didn't work out either. So, their perception of what control is also somewhat skewed. They know that they have back doors into ships and those types of things, for example. But their perception, although some of these things can be used for control of some things, but their base platforms to allow these things to exist are not even on this planet. they were from elsewhere. So in their little world, the Federal Reserve controls currency, in their tiny little minds. But it doesn't. It never did. It was a pass-through. It was a front. It is the public face. That is the acting division of the financial system for the world. Mm-hmm. So they feel by moving it from one location to another, and all you're doing is shuffling some people and records and whatnot of days past over to another building is going to give them some kind of control. No. Yeah. And that actually was pretty apparent because they tried to install the FedNow system into the Treasury this weekend. I know. God bless Duck Dynasty.
I mean, they're consistent. They're consistently doing the wrong things, but they are consistent.
They're consistently under the impression that control means X. Take control over the Fed, and you have control of the financial system. That is not correct. The Fed never has had control of the financial system. And if you were any kind of an operative, you would already know that. Mm-hmm. So, no offense to these people, and this is not an egotistical thing. I mean, technically you and I together know more than they do. Mm-hmm. So just let us handle it, boys. So that's kind of where we sit right now. It's pretty chaotic out there today, energy-wise and deep state-wise and Duck Dynasty people, wise. Are we actually going to get any stuff? I don't know. It's only been a couple days. We went through the flux, another disappointment for the deep state. Governments still need money. Operatives still need money. Everybody still needs money, so we'll see. Right now, I mean, honestly, we'll see. We'll see. There is some talk about potentially some meetings going on with some people coming into town, possibly some military people of some sort. We'll see if they get stopped by the crazy people, God's chosen ones. That's what I think. Maybe we should just call them that from now on. No, they want to be God's chosen people. We'll see if they stop them or not. But again, this is all in the name of us moving forward on our own. Operating systems are, as it relates to the financial system, are an integral part of what we need for security purposes in the interim. And there are a few others that we now have that were important, such as legal systems, justice systems, those types of things. Those could all have been manipulated on the back door, moving up of court cases and manipulating outcomes and judges and all of that type of thing. That's important. We don't have that. Sure. We don't want them to take us to court and manipulate our case, Traffic systems is another one. Lights and, those little cameras that take your picture when you're getting a speeding ticket, right on the little light post or whatever, that needs to go for now. Imagine turning both lights green at the same time at a 4-way stop,
Yeah, I was noticing that. It was the other day, maybe it was last week, I was driving my kids to school, and I don't really pay attention. I mean, I pay attention to the traffic lights, but I don't usually pay attention to everything else that's up there, with the lights.
Yeah. And
I was just kind of staring at the light, and then I noticed there were all these cameras up there. And then I looked at the other intersection, all these cameras. And every single, I don't live in a super big town, a suburb of San Diego, but, it's not San Diego. It's, a small town. And just on my way to the kids' school, every single light had all these cameras. And I was like, they could see me. They could watch me, every day to drop my kid. Maybe they are. I don't know. It's not that exciting, guys. But I was I don't know if I just subconsciously choose to not think about that kind of stuff because I know, it's happening on some level. But I was kind of shocked. And, I know they pass it off as security and blah, 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 blah. But they had access to all of that information if they wanted it.
Well, they got you every way but loose. I mean, OnStar, the little program that, clicks in if you're in a car accident, that kind of thing, all that was controlled. They can turn on the speakers in your car, through your radio, through your, you've got plenty of cameras throughout your car, that they can watch. And then to add to that, even further, now they've got it on the, the light posts, facial recognition, all of those kind of things. So they allegedly do it so they can find criminals. It's the same thing with, the full feeds, for example, at Walmart, you're going through the self-checkout, you got the little camera there that's watching you do the thing. Yeah, that is a direct feed to the FBI.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. I mean, you have zero privacy in your home, zero privacy. You think you're doing whatever with your spouse and then you have privacy. You don't, in your shower, you don't, you don't, there's no privacy anywhere. Take out your phones, turn off your routers, turn off your Wi-Fi, turn off all the streaming, turn everything off in your house, and you still don't have any privacy. You have electrical lines that are running through your house. Mm-hmm. And there's always electricity. Even when your lights are switched off, there are always those lines running through your house. So you have no privacy. There's none. Zero, zilcho, I mean, you don't even have privacy for what's inside you. There's nothing. They stopped at nothing to fully control us. And it was bad. Yeah, you worried about financial systems, you worry about this, and you see these videos about, this or that on the internet. It is way worse than they ever let you onto. Mm-hmm. Way worse. So we're turning some serious corners as far as human development is concerned. That's for sure. And positive changes for Earth as well. It's a lot of manipulation, plant life, you name it, all the kingdoms on Earth, plants, bacteria, so on and so forth, we're all controlled as well. So,
right.
Yep.
Oh boy. Well, we're breaking it down. Breaking it
down. One thing at a time. Always moving forward in preparation for us to do things by ourselves without any faction of their group's involvement.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Right. Okay. We'll see you on Wednesday.
See you then.
Want to share news from UNN? Help us change the face of social media and use it for good. Connect with us through our online channels. Our social media team creates clips from each newscast you can easily share with people you care about. That's also where you'll find our UNN Meme of the Day, a great way to encourage critical thinking. Links to all our social media sites are available at the bottom of our website at unitednetwork.earth. Let's change the face of news together.
That wraps up today's news update. Please share UNN with your friends and family. We need everyone to come together and help restore our planet. When news happens in your area, record and share it with us so together we can share it with the world. Remember, if it's going to be, it's up to me. I'm Sunny Galt. Join us Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the real news.